Mouth breathing protocol name. Mouth breathing. Brief description. Mouth breathing is a respiratory pattern where air is primarily inhaled and exhaled through the mouth, rather than the nose. While it's a natural response in certain situations, for example, during intense exercise or when nasal passages are blocked, chronic mouth breathing can have various physiological effects. Key areas of impact: respiratory efficiency, oral and dental health, sleep quality, facial development, especially in children, cardiovascular function, cognitive performance. Current research landscape. Recent research has focused on the negative impacts of chronic mouth breathing, particularly in children. Studies have explored its effects on dental health, sleep quality, and cognitive function. There's also growing interest in the relationship between mouth breathing and conditions like sleep apnea and asthma. Pediatric studies. Recent research has heavily focused on the effects of mouth breathing in children. Studies have shown correlations between chronic mouth breathing and altered facial growth patterns, increased risk of dental malocclusions, higher incidence of sleep disordered breathing, potential impacts on cognitive development and academic performance, sleep quality, and disorders. There's growing evidence linking mouth breathing to sleep disturbances. Recent studies have explored the relationship between mouth breathing and obstructive sleep apnea (OSA) effects on sleep quality and daytime sleepiness, potential exacerbation of snoring and other sleep-related breathing disorders, oral and dental health. Current research is examining the impact of mouth breathing on increased risk of dental caries and periodontal disease, changes in oral microbiome composition, effects on saliva production and oral pH levels, respiratory function. Studies are investigating how chronic mouth breathing affects lung function and respiratory efficiency, susceptibility to respiratory infections, management of conditions like asthma and allergic rhinitis, cardiovascular vocal effects. Emerging research is exploring potential links between chronic mouth breathing and changes in blood pressure regulation, impacts on heart rate variability, possible long-term cardiovascular risks, posture and musculoskeletal issues. Recent studies have begun to examine the relationship between mouth breathing and forward head posture, potential impacts on overall body posture and musculoskeletal health, cognitive and behavioral impacts. There's growing interest in understanding how chronic mouth breathing might affect attention and concentration, and especially in children, mood and behavior, long-term cognitive function. Intervention studies. Current research is also focusing on developing and testing interventions, include functional therapy to retrain breathing patterns, orthodontic interventions to address structural issues, educational programs to increase awareness and promote nasal breathing technical advancements. New studies are utilizing advanced technologies such as 3D facial scanning to assess morphological changes associated with mouth breathing, sleep monitoring devices to better understand nighttime breathing patterns, biomarker analysis to investigate systemic effects of chronic mouth breathing. Comparative studies. Recent research has also included more comparative studies, contrasting the effects of nasal breathing versus mouth breathing, examining differences between occasional and chronic mouth breathers. The landscape reflects a growing recognition of mouth breathing as a multifaceted issue with potential impacts across various aspects of health and development. The trend is towards more interdisciplinary research, combining insights from dentistry, sleep medicine, pediatrics, otolaryngology, and other fields to gain a comprehensive understanding of the effects of mouth breathing. Potential benefits. While mouth breathing is generally considered less beneficial than nasal breathing, it can be beneficial in certain situations. Increased air intake during intense physical activity, relief during nasal congestion, emergency breathing when nasal passages are blocked, mechanisms of action. Bypass of nasal filtration and condition. Air entering through the mouth bypasses the nasal passages, which normally filter, warm, and humidify incoming air. This can lead to increased exposure to airborne pathogens and irritants in the lower airways. The cooler, drier air can irritate the throat and bronchial tubes, potentially increasing inflammation. Altered gas exchange. Mouth breathing often leads to overbreathing or hyperventilation. This can cause excessive expulsion of carbon dioxide, leading to respiratory alkalosis. The altered CO2 levels can affect the oxygen-hemoglobin dissociation curve, potentially reducing oxygen delivery to tissues. Bohr effect. Changes in airway resistance. The oral cavity provides less resistance to airflow compared to nasal passages. This can lead to altered breathing patterns, often resulting in shallower or rapid breaths. Reduced airway resistance may contribute to overbreathing and disrupted breathing rhythms. Impact on nitric oxide production. Nasal breathing stimulates the production of nitric oxide in the paranasal sinuses. Mouth breathing bypasses this process, reducing the amount of nitric oxide in inhaled air. This can affect vasodilation, bronchodilation, and local immune defense in the respiratory system. Altered tongue position and orofacial muscle function. Chronic mouth breathing can lead to a low, forward tongue posture. This altered position can affect the development of the palate and dental arches, especially in growing children. It may also contribute to weakened orofacial muscles, potentially affecting speech and swallowing. Salivary changes. Mouth breathing can lead to increased evaporation of saliva. This may result in dry mouth xerostomia, altering the oral pH and microbiome. Reduced salivary flow can increase the risk of dental caries and other oral health issues. Activation of stress response. Mouth breathing can activate the sympathetic nervous system more readily than nasal breathing. This may lead to increased heart rate, blood pressure, and stress hormone release. Effects on sleep architecture. Mouth breathing during sleep can contribute to snoring and sleep disordered breathing. It may lead to more frequent arousals and fragmented sleep patterns. This can affect the quality and quantity of deep sleep stages. Postural adaptations. Chronic mouth breathing often correlates with forward head posture. This can lead to compensatory changes in neck and shoulder muscles. Over time, may contribute to broader musculoskeletal imbalances. Olfactory system bypass. Mouth breathing reduces airflow through the nasal passages, limiting exposure to olfactory stimuli. This can affect the sense of smell and, by extension, taste perception. It may also impact the olfactory system's role in memory and emotion processing. Immune system effects. The bypass of nasal filtration may alter the composition of microbes reaching the lower airways. This could potentially affect the respiratory tract's local immune responses. Thermal regulation. Nasal breathing plays a role in regulating brain temperature through heat exchange. Mouth breathing may affect this mechanism, potentially impacting cognitive function and sleep quality. These mechanisms of action interact in complex ways, contributing to the various effects associated with chronic mouth breathing. Understanding these mechanisms is crucial for developing effective interventions and treatments for individuals who habitually breathe through their mouth.